welcome the 45th President of the United States of America. God bless the USA.
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
For the first time in America's history, we had a sitting president who was refusing to comply with the results of an election and was actively attempting to overturn the results. So, I mean, this was unprecedented. And so in the span of a very short time, the United States went from being thought of as an exemplar of democracy, right up there with the Scandinavian countries, to being kind of in this middle zone of weakening democracies.
No, we just rented it. It was a big plant.
I feel really, really horrible, and like freedom is up for grabs, and I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't feel any confidence in this nation or the state of democracy right now.
I wasn't born in this country, and I think I arrived in this country 10 years ago in the middle of the chaos. And now when I observe, even after 10 years, I didn't saw any progress, and I don't feel America is the first country anymore.
I am an independent by nature. I swing left and right depending on the issues and so on and so forth. But the right has lost me, and they will never have me. And the concerns that I have about what's going around the world globally, towards the fascism, authoritarianism, and so on and so forth, is of great concern.
There is a tendency that's particularly marked in America to embrace what I call the "it can't happen here" narrative. That America, as being known to be a beacon of democracy in the world, in reality, America has two histories. It has backed many anti-democratic coups. It has a double history. It is a beacon of freedom in the world. It has received countless immigrants, my own family among them. But there is a tendency to think that authoritarianism and unfreedom and dictators are simply things that happen elsewhere. I see Donald Trump as a highly skilled and highly successful propagandist, actually one of the most successful propagandists and speakers in history. He has succeeded working in a democracy with an open media climate to convince tens of millions of people that he won the 2020 election, which is a pretty big, easily verifiable fact. Now, he's been able to do this because he has this strongman secret, which is connecting emotionally with his audience. He uses humor, he uses gestures, he tells them he loves them. He says, "You are the forgotten, but you will be forgotten no longer. I will save you." And this is what strongmen have done since Mussolini, since Hitler. Erdogan will cry on camera.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a case where if they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone.
The fact that Donald Trump is now convicted will make him much more desperate to get back into power. The strongman playbook is if you have charges or indictments, most politicians wouldn't want to run for office in that situation. Strongmen feel compelled to run for office, to get into power, get back into power, so they can get control of the judicial system and make their legal troubles go away, because their biggest fear is to go to jail. And so Donald Trump is in a tradition of leaders who have included Vladimir Putin, Silvio Berlusconi, and others who have run for office because, and not in spite of, having legal problems.
What is the consequence in terms of going forward with your acknowledgement that those are private acts as opposed to official acts?
The official stuff has to be expunged completely from the indictment.
The Supreme Court's decision on immunity is an extraordinarily broad and sweeping one, and it gives the president almost complete immunity for almost anything that he does, either in his public capacity or in his private capacity, and really elevates the president to a kind of king figure, which is clearly not something that the framers would have wanted, having just defeated a king. And so I think this decision really plays into all of the concerns that are out there that our democracy, our constitutional democracy, is under threat.
There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election.
You start to not believe what's true and false, right? And he has this way of basically turning everything on his opponent. So you know, if he's lying and cheating, or if he's trying to steal an election, or if he's trying to undercut democracy, he will immediately accuse his opponents of doing that. And you end up in this like bizarro twilight zone where your head's spinning and you're just like, wait, what's going on? What's going on? To the point where you don't know what's up or down or right or wrong.
Cannot accept communism in this great country.
We know that violent extremism is growing both on the right and the left, but it's growing exponentially more on the right. You know, in the 1960s and the 1970s, if you tracked terrorist organizations in the United States, most of them were on the far left. They were environmental groups. They were, you know, a whole host of groups. That declined and almost disappeared until recently. What we have been seeing, and this is especially starting in about 2008, and we think it's associated with the election of Barack Obama, that when an African-American was elected president of the United States, this somehow reinvigorated a lot of white supremacists in the United States.
One of the biggest myths of authoritarianism is that it brings social unity, it brings peace, and it brings prosperity. And this goes back to Benito Mussolini saying he was going to make the trains run on time. That Hitler brought prosperity to Germany. And this continues today, and that Putin was going to be a doer, it was the word in Russian, that he was going to modernize Russia. And if we really look at what happens, the economic outcomes of dictatorships and authoritarian states, they're often disastrous, either because in earlier times the dictator led the country into war and left the country in ruins.
I think we're about to enter 10 to 20 years of real instability, real political instability. I don't know what form that's going to take, but it's not going to be contained in November. In November, if Trump wins he's going to attempt to concentrate power.
And 2024 is the final battle. That's going to be the big one.
Republican lawmakers, important senators and congressmen have all gone on TV, and they've all said that they will not necessarily accept the results of the election, because the Republican Party is now an autocratic party that has election denial and corruption and lying about elections baked into it. It's part of its DNA, its dogma now. So if the election has an outcome that isn't favorable to Donald Trump, they're telling us that they're not going to accept the results. What will happen after that? Some form of violence. It would be larger than January 6th, because Trump has been radicalizing his followers.